by the way, you're cut off right at your lips. So can you move your computer?
Oh, sorry. Or maybe I can just straighten my spine.
That'll do it. That works. Good. All right. So, how do you say your name?
Well, everyone says it in a different way, but it's Amiran. It's Georgian. I live in Poland. I am like quarter Georgian, and so it's like probably the only name like this in Poland. But it's Amiran, Amran. So English.
Amiran.
Yes, this is great.
Okay. We had just gotten started, and we basically of understanding, if we can understand just this point about the Buddha, then we can unpack that point. But we always want to start with that one point of dukkha, dukkha nirodha. The Buddha even said that. There's sutta where he says, I only teach one thing.
Right.
Then he said, both before and now, I have taught only one thing to make sure that they got it. Okay, there's only one thing there. There's not that he changed his methods, that he had been staying with the same thing since he started teaching. Dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Now, the definition of dukkha should be seen as not suffering. Doesn't mean suffering at all. What it means is dissatisfaction. Mm-hmm. You could ask anyone, are you suffering? And they'll say no. And then they'll say, do you have any annoyances in your life? Do you have any little things that bother you from time to time? And everybody will say yes. That's what we mean by dukkha, is that things are annoying. And so basically what we have to do, the very short way of looking at it is to check out whether the things that we're thinking about in the mind are annoying kind of thoughts, or are they wholesome thoughts? And if they're wholesome thoughts, then we're good to go. And if they're not wholesome thoughts, then out they go. And that's the secret to the whole practice. That a lot of various systems and schools have lost track of the very important quality of the Pali is the Panchanara, which means the 5 hindrances, those things that negate. Okay, so this is basically what we're kind of, for a beginner's way of looking at it, is that dukkha is in fact the hindrances, because what the hindrances are is hindering you from feeling good right now, in the present moment. So, if we can catch the mind in hindrance, and then throw the hindrance out, we've accomplished something. And we feel that we've accomplished something. Almost as the major work has been done. The job to be done is to throw the hindrance out. Now that we've thrown the hindrance out, it's almost like relief. Now I'm giving you kind of a shorthand method because I want to make one point here, and that is that many of the systems, an example of that is one that's known as choiceless awareness. And sometimes the Mahasi method is practiced this way by students, in the sense of noting the hindrance and looking at the hindrance, inspecting the hindrance, getting insights from the hindrances, but we don't throw the hindrance out. And so that would mean that the Buddha is teaching dukkha, 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 and eventually nirodha. Which is the way that most people practice it.
Right.
But the easy way to practice it is to see the dukkha right now and come out of it right now and be in the here now right now, without having it be a special here now. It's just an ordinary here now. It's just free from the hindrance, which is marvelous in and of itself.
Yes, it's very like refreshing perspective. Can I ask a question now?
Sure, sure. This is your talk.
Yeah, so this is like great starting point for what I see as my particular problems, which may not be like very particular, but let's see. So what I learned about myself in the past like 1 year or so, which shed a light on what I have been doing with practice like in the past like 10 years maybe, is that I have some, like since childhood, I have developed this survival mechanism of my mind of escaping difficult emotions. And they've been always hidden, and I've been superficially like extrovert and joyful and happy and so on. But actually I have all the time some difficult emotions in a clinch in a way. So like anger, sadness, despair. And
That's very typical of Northern and Eastern Europe.
right, yeah. And I've been searching, for different descriptions. Some I don't know, therapies describe it as narcissist, but in any way, it's like cutting off the feelings and presenting some persona that's kind of fake, and not being able to connect to also the body. So for example, when I'm doing body scanning, I only recently started doing this very like heedfully and noticing what actually am I doing when I'm doing this guided body scanning like 40 minutes. And actually I was scared because I only now realize that the habit is taking me back to the like behind my eyes somewhere to the safe place, as if to like guard myself from these sensations which could have brought some difficult emotions, right? So and also it leads to difficulty in the practice, because for me, like going after this small joy that's available. You often talk about gladdening the mind, right? But for me, the risk is that I've been doing this on a fake superficial level for my whole life, and it feels dishonest, right? So finding something about some pleasant a pleasant imagination of possible future events, and use it to escape the problems, escape the difficult emotions, right? So I've realized that I've been doing this for a long time. So which means that I've been gladdening only small part of the mind, while the rest was, some gray mess which wasn't even touched, right? And I could only feel
Again, that's very typical.
Oh, that's glad to hear, because probably there are ways to kind of counteract it. So just to finish this, I only was able to reach more depth by some kind of depth breakthrough, which usually required going far into dukkha, right? So like banging my head against the wall and doing this kind of strain that I haven't been noticing, and then after a while or a long while, I was seeing that what you said, what could seem like dissatisfaction was really a lot of dukkha. So sometimes, very seldom, my mind could see, and I almost immediately felt deep compassion and like crying, that this tension, I recognize that it's been with me my whole life, and I've seen just dukkha in something that before seemed like ordinary life. But the problem is that it's very difficult for me to reach these breakthroughs, right? And I'm hoping that there are better ways than just like banging my head against the wall, right?
I would hope so. The first thing that I could say is going deep is not the right direction. We need to go up. We need to brighten the mind.
Mm-hmm.
We need to make it strong and bright and clear and capable.
Before we even try to go deep, yes? Or
right. And so let's not even talk about going deep. Let's talk instead about, and I'll even ask you this question: if your mind was in fact bright and sharp, and you were in a position of feeling really good and comfortable about yourself, in that position, could you deal with those dark feelings that you've been talking about avoiding?
Could I? Sorry, I missed this. Could I what with those feelings?
The dark feelings that you
Right.
have been avoiding. Are you willing to look at them?
Uh,
Are you willing to jump in there?
only recently. So I've had this kind of breakdown and kind of mini depression, and only recently I started to learn to feel this kind of courage to that this is the ultimately freeing thing, to be able to look at anything. But it's not with the joyful escaping mind, which I usually had, but more with feeling this kind of
You
heartfulness.
must have missed the premise.
Uh-huh.
I think missed the premise. Let me start again.
Okay.
And that if your mind was sharp and focused, and you felt good and secure and comfortable in that state, would you be willing to look at these feelings and deal with them?
Sure. Yes. Definitely.
Okay.
And that's what I've been searching for a while. But it's these. I guess it's hard for me to find a reliable way to get into this place, right?
You do have to get your mind fit for work before you do the work, and you haven't ever gotten your mind really fit for doing the job. And so let's work on getting the mind fit for work.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because in fact, the process of getting the mind fit for work means that keeping the mind fit for work means that you can deal with those feelings and keep the mind fit for work without it getting dull again, which is normally what happens with feelings.
Right.
That when feelings are deep, whatever they are, and there's only a few basic ones, if we understand what they are, the first important thing to understand is they're not you. That you are not those feelings, and yet our whole language system is built upon it. For instance, I am angry, or I'm frustrated, or I'm sad, or I feel so depressed. There's always this I in there, in the sense of the anger or the depression comes in and grabs the self. And so this is normally we feel a victim to our own feelings. But what we're doing here is we're waking up so that when that feeling comes, we can say, I can see you. And we disassociate ourselves from it. We are no longer that feeling, I am angry or I'm angry. No, it's just there is that anger. Ha ha, I've dealt with it before, I can deal with it again. Let me take a few deep breaths and rough it off.
Well, so my problem with this is that maybe because of my avoiding habits, these what I was thinking that was this kind of anatta sanya, like trying to perception of not self, like applying this to objects. There always has been aversion in it, right? So actually pushing away, and what maybe I could call this ego dissociation, right? Which I'm sure is not what the Buddha meant, right? So like actually pushing away, or it's too subtle to notice because it's so pervasive in my mind that it's
If you get your mind fit for work, then the subtleties will not be so subtle, and you can see what you're doing. And in fact, you can see it when it's subtle before it gets so big that it grabs you by the throat, literally or figuratively. And when I say literally, I mean that the throat gets tight and tensions come, and
it's with me it's like almost always tight, right? So yeah. And I heard you talking about that it actually comes from the shoulders, which I'm sure this is the case, and pressure in the head, which is great, but just relaxing shoulders usually is not enough for me. So what would you say in such case, about the process of getting the mind ready?
all of those tensions are based in fear. But so is anger. That in fact, a lot of the tension is protection, the kind of protection. Lions are a very, very clear example for the Dhamma because of the lion's mane. Why does the lion have a mane?
Sorry, mane. What is mane?
The big bushy part
Ah,
that
right,
makes it a big male. Okay, the mane.
right, right,
Why
right,
does
right.
the lion have a mane?
I think I heard you talking about it in some of the videos, so I would be cheating if I would reply. But I think it was to protect against the bite, right?
Right, exactly. It's for protection.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you do when you are afraid. You put on your lion's mane for protection, and we get all tensed up, only we don't even know about it
Right.
until the tension becomes tiresome. But if our mind is really sharp and fit for work, then we can see that tension much sooner, much easier.
Right, but I guess my problem is that this wrong attitude is there with the mind from the very beginning. So it's
The what?
this kind of wrong attitude of this like treating practice as actually okay. So it's like I see the practice as a way to escape. So it's driven by the fear very often, right? So this wrong attitude of kind of narrow mind, survival mind, that I will do the breathing so that I can escape something, right?
Right,
Is there from
okay.
the very beginning, right? And with the
But
uh,
once you do escape it, then you're the winner. Yes, everyone starts as a victim
sure, right.
until they have one or two successes,
Mm-hmm.
and now they've got to win. Now they've got their game bag filling up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is where confidence comes, and the whole quality of the Eightfold Noble Path, especially the quality of right attitude, is to change our attitude out of being a loser mentality, needing something, wanting something, even to, look at that, I just did it again.
Yeah, I liked this point what you made about the winner mentality, and actually my point about it is actually again probably like a lot of people, I have very bad associations with the winner mentality, because winner for me means winning to impress someone, winning with some people, like competing, right? So I
Okay,
have like,
when to impress me already?
sorry.
When to impress me? I'll be impressed. But
Yeah,
you see, what you got to do is you've got to give yourself permission to feel like that you can be a winner, that you
Mm.
don't have to remain a loser. And in fact, part of your loser's mentality is so strong that you even justify that winners are bad people.
Yeah, that's probably, yeah, it feels like Nietzsche talking about Christianity and resentment, that it's based on this kind of approach. Yeah, it feels like this.
No, but we're talking about a choice. Dukkha or dukkha nirodha. It's your choice. But your habit is dukkha. Your habit is to stay in the old thoughts, and now you're even giving yourself justifications of why you should stay in your old thoughts, rather than giving yourself permission to change and to come out of that. Stop feeling like a loser. Start feeling like that you're successful, that you're safe and secure.
Well,
That
can I ask
things are
one
not
question?
dangerous. Nobody's looking at you.
So you mentioned that I could impress you. So this is also one of the problems I found, that I'm very often, because of this habit, which probably you will say is common, is actually to impress someone, to think about some kind of authority versus doing it really deeply for myself, right? And I think I only started approaching this feeling of doing this for
I
myself when I
was
feel.
joking.
Sorry?
When I said that, I was joking completely, and I thought you knew it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
here
yeah,
you
but
are trying to emphasize it.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
don't go.
actually, great.
You don't need to do that. You need to be able to give yourself permission that it's okay for you to be successful in your practice.
Yeah.
because right now you won't let yourself be successful in your practice.
Hmm. Yeah,
You are
that's.
actually clinging to your dukkha, as most people do.
Hmm. Because it's
That's
been
why
like
my
a.
job is to rattle your cage and to say, wakey, wakey, look at what you're doing. You
Yeah.
can become a winner. You can feel good. You can gladden your mind. You can actually do it. But you got to be willing to give up being a loser.
Yeah, and change the perspective on what even loser mean, right? It's like winning for me, right? Not for impressing or for any status stuff, right? Which is, yeah.
When and everyone is raised that way. We are all
Yeah.
born losers. Every one of us. Every child is born little, not able to change his diaper or feed himself or do anything. And no matter how rich the parents are, the kid spends the rest of his childhood being told what to do. And so we get in the
Hmm.
habit of being told what to do. We even keep a bunch of those old rules that we've had to follow when we were kids, and we store them so that we can make sure that we keep doing what we were told to do.
Right. Right.
And when we have that kind of stuff going, it's a hindrance. The fact that we carry it around is actually much deeper than that, and we'll deal with the deeper parts of it later. But the
Right.
fact is that now we're in the habit of being the loser that we started out in childhood as. And my invitation to you is grow up fully and be completely fully an adult, a winner, a guy who's in charge of his life, one who's responsible for his happiness and dwells in it happily.
Yeah, I think I needed this really strong dose of dukkha to really have this kind of wake up, right? I guess Buddha said that some
No, you
people.
don't. That's the whole problem. That's
Hmm.
the problem. The
Hmm.
problem is we think that we're so stuck in it that we need to have really heavy doses of dukkha before we can see it.
Mm.
That's not the style of the Buddha. The Buddha and the whole quality of what we're doing is stop spending so long in dukkha and see it quickly as dukkha and get rid of it quickly before it gets big enough that it actually slaps us in the face.
Yeah, I mean, the more skillful we are, the less dukkha we need, right? To actually see it, right? Well, I guess what I'm saying is that it turned out that
Let us put it this way. The more skillful we are in a certain skill set, including sati, then the less often we spend in
right,
dukkha.
right, right,
That's
right.
a better way of saying it. Because we wake up to see before we get into it when we're really good. But a little bit less than that is we see it right as we're stepping into it. But most people are really taking a bath in it before they recognize how bad it stinks.
Hmm. So can I ask you some practical questions? How because what comes to my mind is how this sneaky attitude like creeps into like me, so into my mind. I would say like two things. So one, on the mental side, there's this whole framework that I often cannot see, that that it's very subtle, so that I'm not here for myself, but there's some expectations in the future, and this gives this kind of a bit fatalistic taste about the here now. It's not like truly here now, right? Because I see this as some future problem, some expectations, and so on, and it's very subtle, and there, right from the very beginning, if I don't notice it, right there, I am this kind of loser because I'm doing something to, let's say, prevent some future, I don't know, humiliation, for example, or right. So I'm doing this to prevent some future problem, and this is very very subtle to notice, right? And the second way is even in the body, the constriction and the dullness that you mentioned, right? So let's say if I am about to sit, it's so overwhelming, the tension in my head, and the emotion, that I can't notice it.
When does that happen? When did that happen? When does that happen?
Well, I would say like 90% of the time, unless I do. Well, it would be easier for.
When does that happen? Does it happen like 30 minutes into a sit or 40 minutes into a sit?
Right.
When does this happen? Does it happen as you're walking down the street? Now that you've started meditation, now you have tense necks every time you see a stoplight? Please be specific. Tell me when.
Okay, great. That's a great question. So actually, usually when I close my eyes, so when I sit down, so it doesn't happen when I walk, when I do walking meditation, usually, because I can feel the feedback from my whole body, and I'm forced to go against, like, to feel these emotions. But if I sit down and I want to do Anapanasati, which is the reason I haven't been doing it for a while. Well, first of all, there's this desire to close my eyes, which is like unwholesome desire to close my eyes, which is like this going after this safe feeling inside my head, which already starts to shutting down some muscles around my head, so that I feel safe against some emotions, some subtle emotions of like anxiety. And then if I follow this, then it starts going on. Sometimes when I keep my eyes open and only close my eyes when I've dealt with the grossest defilements, sometimes I reach the state that my eyes close more naturally, and they are not like shut down very forcefully, but like are slightly like a little bit open. But the closing of my eyes is not driven by this avoiding habit, which is for, again, I would describe it as escaping up inside towards my head. Okay, great.
Let's leave that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's leave that with the way to make sure for the eyes is, first off, don't tighten them closed. Don't squeeze them tight closed. Anything else is okay. Letting them close naturally or close down to the point that they're very little open, that's all natural. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can either close them naturally or keep them open and then let them close by themselves, or keep them open. It's up to you. This is not the issue.
Right.
Normally what people will do is that sometimes their eyes will be open and sometimes the eyes will be closed.
Right.
The question is, in fact, if you can get yourself into a really, really good state, and I'll define what that means later, but get yourself into a really, really good state when the eyes are closed, and then open your eyes and see if you can maintain that really, really good state. So this is something to play with. So let's go on now. Let's not dwell on eyes.
Okay. So the next part is actually breathing, right? So if I decide to watch the breathing, then what happens, and I guess it's pretty common, is I start to, instead of watching the breathing, I start to control the breathing.
Absolutely. 100%, without a doubt. Keep going. I'm listening.
All right. And the way, however, okay, so this is not the issue, but the issue is that
anyone who tells you, let's stop there and let's process that.
Okay.
There are some, let us say, old ways of doing that gets traced back to later literature about the 5th century AD, where the indication is not to control the breathing. However, the sutras themselves, the actual instruction of the Buddha is long, deep in-breath and long, deep out-breath without a doubt. That means it's got to be controlled.
But the sutta says...
So we learn to control the breath, and there's a whole lot of physiological reasons for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just merely watch the breath, then the mind will wander away from it really easily because you're not paying much attention to it. But if you're actually physically controlling the breathing, so that you know, at least on the in-breath, one point on the in-breath, you have sati, that you know that this is an in-breath. And then on one out-breath, you know that this is an out-breath. That's another point of sati.
So thank you for mentioning this, because I remember I had this doubt when reading long time ago the Buddha Dasa Anapanasati treatise. So because he actually mentions about starting doing the short breathing and then doing long breathing, and a lot of people say that the sutta says the monk, when there's short breathing, the monk knows there's a short breath, and when there's a long breath, the monk knows that there's a long breath. So it doesn't necessarily say
Who
that.
gave you that term know? K-N-O-W. Who gave you that word? That's a bad translation.
All right. I think both Bhikkhu Bodhi and Thanissaro.
No, not Bodhi. Bodhi uses the word understand, which is a much better word.
Okay, understand. So, but what's the difference in this case? It still doesn't mean that.
A whole lot, because this is how whole bases of practice are known.
Mm-hmm.
It's whether you're controlling the breath because you just know it's in and out, or whether you're really understanding it. You're really in there piddling with it. You're really in there controlling it. Not only that, but with neuroscience, we come to know that the breath is normally controlled by the reptilian brain here in the back.
Right.
But then the MRIs show, or the functional MRIs will show that when people are told to breathe in a certain way or controlling the breath, it always lights up the frontal cortex, which is exactly what we're trying to do in our practice, is to light up the frontal cortex. So we do it with the breathing.
So kind of like dolphins, which I guess always breathe intentionally and can also stop breathing intentionally, unlike people.
So this is basically anapanasati, is learning to control the breath. Let's put it this way. If you cannot control the breath, how do you expect to control the thoughts? And if you can't control the thoughts, how do you expect to control the breathing? Your feelings. And if you can't control your feelings, then what's the point of this anyway?
Well, okay, so I could now play the Burmese advocate of Burmese devil. So the Burmese would say, well, by
Are
just...
you practicing that way, or are you just being argumentative with me?
Well, I am. So I've been practicing a long time like this. So just for the sake of my eliminating my doubts in the future. Well, you could say that it's not, well, the question is who's controlling, right? Is it like the small conscious self or the whole mind, right? So I've been practicing.
Right now, let's not worry about that. That's all philosophy focus that we don't need to deal with. We'll deal with what is the nature of the self later when you get your mind straightened out enough to really figure it out.
Makes sense. Totally agreed. So let's make a next step. So let's say I agree about the controlling. I like the argument of Thanissaro also, that you learn something about by playing with it, right? By learning, by making sure you can reproduce this thing, right? Just like small children, right? So okay, so let's go next. So the way I control the breath, even if I want to make my breath super,
don't make it super.
Okay, comfortable or refreshing,
it does not say long, super long, deep breath. It doesn't use the word super. Okay, it's just a long breath.
Yeah.
Perhaps to talk about it like this: that many people on the ordinary level that are breathing at about 20 breaths a minute, and you can see that on many different videos on YouTube and other places, as well as if you're around people. And so it is about average, about 20. We're looking about cutting that down to half or probably a quarter of that speed. The next point is that when people are breathing very shallow, 20 breaths a minute, they go from like 40% to 60% on the in breath, and then the out breath is from 60% down to 40%, leaving a whole bunch of stuff. About 2/3 of the lungs never gets cleaned out. But we don't want to go for 0 to 100. That's ridiculous on many levels. But let's look at it that we're going to get it down to about 30 and up to about 80 by having a long, interesting, deep breath. And the easy way to do that is by counting to 5 on an in breath and counting to 5 on an out breath, and then a couple of counts between the in breath and the out breath. That will help the breathing slow down. Once we get the breathing slowed down, we don't have to do the counting anymore, but it's a good thing to get started.
Would you suggest, because some people say that we should learn from the out breath how to relax. So should out breath be complete relaxation, or should it also be controlled?
Just a sigh, which takes a whole lot longer to do. A nice sigh takes a whole lot longer than your average in breath, out breath. Just relax. That whole point is to learn to relax. You're making it far too technical. You've read far too many books.
Oh, for sure. So in practice, the problem is that whenever I start to, I think I have any idea of, that I should be controlling the breath, which you said is okay in itself. I start to control the breath from this place.
Your intention is to intentionally oxygenate the body, knowing that normal breathing is a scarcity mentality. The reptilian part of the brain is conservative.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and so our breathing is normally conservative, which means that we also conserve energy. We don't use the frontal cortex or it gets tired. Okay, and so our breathing gets shallow. If we intentionally start taking deeper breaths, then that oxygen that's coming in will help oxygenate the body, wake us up, as well as wake up the mind, so that the mind's now got more juice. Also, the blood tends to clean out all of the poisons that muscles and neurons and all that kind of stuff put out, and is either collected and disposed of either through the lungs or through the kidneys. If we're doing deep breathing, then it's a whole lot quicker, and the purification is better. So we can actually, with a few breaths, breathe ourselves out of anger. It's quite physiologically possible if we know what we're doing. And so beginning to learn to control your breathing so that you really got a good hold control. And Ajahn Thanissaro is correct when he says play with it. Learn it. Right. Know it. But above all, have control over it.
So I think my main problem is you have this conservative reptilian brain, which not only leads to shallow breathing. In my case, it actually leads to literally stopping the breathing. So often I literally stop breathing, and this is like my habit, because only then I can focus on my thoughts and I don't feel the emotions in the body.
You don't
right?
need to focus on your thoughts.
Oh yeah. But this is the habit, right?
That's the whole point, right?
This is the avoiding habit. So this is strong habit, and I think that the way I learned to deal with this like conservative avoidant habit is to forcing myself to do something in social situations, right? And this is also like lifelong habit, right? So to use force and violence in a way towards the other side of the mind. So the one side of the mind wants to escape. The other
that in you. It's easy to see. It's really, really easy to see.
Yeah. So how to? So my question is, and then you can see how the conflict arises, right? Because the controlling is feeling aversion towards the conservative reptilian brain.
This is in fact a turnaround.
Right.
This is turnaround. Sometimes I ask a student the following question on the first call, and that is do you want me to pick and put fill in some holes in your understanding and practice, or do you want me to accept the Dhamma cart, the apple cart? Do you want me to turn the whole thing over?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure I'm full of
Are you sure that you want me to do that? Because normally when I ask that question, the guys say yes, but they don't call back.
Well, let's see. You check me, but I think I'm ready for like questioning my assumptions that I haven't even noticed.
Okay, exactly. So much of what people are practicing when they call it meditation is doing basically the same thing that they were doing before they started meditating. They're just doing it harder.
Yeah, totally. That's me.
And so we need to make a U-turn, a complete U-turn. And that U-turn is basically from and stop wanting things. Stop wanting out of your meditation and enjoy it instead. Enjoy the fact that you don't want anything. In fact, wanting something is a hindrance, and wanting enlightenment is a huge hindrance.
Don't tell me about it. I've learned the
Wanting
hard way.
enlightenment is wanting anything that we don't have, but wanting enlightenment is very, very common. I want out of my crap. I want out of my crap. And so we're like a little child that has a dirty diaper, hoping somebody's going to change our diaper. I want out of my crap. Except that the diaper is mental, a mental construction, and the mind's full of crap. And we need to learn to give ourselves a shower, completely all on our own. Okay? Right then and there, as soon as you catch that stuff in the mind, throw it out right now. That's the technique. Is dukkha, dukkha, nirodha, not dukkha, 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 dukkha. Ah, I see the
dukkha. Hopefully it will stick in my mind what you just done. Yeah, that was great. So actually I have, okay, so let me again play like the turn it around, because so I have two teachers in my mind. Okay, I have Thanissaro, which is like, you can do it, right? You have to try. You have to Ajahn Thanissaro, right?
Which Santikaro.
No, I like Santikaro, but no, I've been listening to Santikaro a little bit, but I haven't heard. He hasn't recorded a lot of Dhamma.
You're saying Thanissaro.
Thanissaro.
Okay,
so this is
all right.
And in my wrong understanding, the forceful, the violent part of my mind is Thanissaro, and the kind of avoidant part is the Sayadaw Uttajaniya, who is all about Chittanupassana.
Who?
So just what Sayadaw Uttajaniya, he's student of Sri Omin, who was
name very slowly. I get Sayadaw, and after that I'm lost.
Uttajaniya. So he's.
I don't know.
Okay, so he's Burmese, and he's student of Sri Omin, who was student of Mahasi, but he kind of revolutionized in a way Mahasi's approach by eliminating the labeling, just as you are like repeatedly talking about.
That was a good move.
Right, and then basically focusing on Chittanupassana, so just watching the attitude of the mind, but without. So what's interesting in what you're saying is I have to connect these two approaches, because Uttajaniya doesn't say, eliminate the craving, but then do something, right? He's just saying that when we recognize anatta, then the mind itself will start become wholesome, right? And I've been practicing.
That you have to say, this anger is not me, or this thought is not me. It's not mine. This is not who I am. Which is exactly the same phrase as aha, I see you, dukkha, or aha, I see you, Mara, was the word that the Buddha used, but it's not the emphasis upon aha, I see. It's that whatever it is not the Mara. You have to see anatta, that I am not the Mara, and yet you do, and that's what he's trying to tell you. He's trying to tell you to disassociate yourself from this stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
See it in the mind as something in the mind, but it's not who you are.
Right, but that's okay. Okay, yeah, that's my habit. So I mean, I think I am comfortable with this part, but the problem here is that he will never usually suggest to then, controlling, right? So, and what I'm getting at is, well, where's the middle ground between
But you
seeing?
just did when you came out of it. You did control it. You threw out the thought, I am suffering, into, I am not the suffering. The suffering is separate from me. And by doing so, that throws it out. This is controlling it.
Right.
All right. Now we can go down the list of suttas where I can make the points. In fact, that might be a good way for you and I to work with each other. Okay. Let's go now to sutta number 19 in the Majjhima Nikaya. Two kinds of thought. The name of the sutta is Two Kinds of Thought. So you can go read that at a later time. And I won't tell you how the Buddha talks about it, but let's talk about it in the sense of wholesome or unwholesome thoughts. Thoughts of greed, thoughts of non-greed, thoughts of ill will, thoughts of non-ill will, thoughts of violence, thoughts of non-violence, okay, or harmlessness. This is one way of looking at it. That's the way it is in the suttas. But the Buddha is pointing out, in fact, that the unwholesome is the hindrances. And the wholesome is freedom from the hindrances. And now we can look at various places like Sutta number 39 that actually defines the hindrances and talks about why it's so valuable to be free from each one of the hindrances. And the only way to do it is by changing our mind, throwing the bad thoughts out and throwing the good thoughts in. Now, he may not have ever mentioned that you've got to control the mind, but darn it, you have to, or you won't ever get anywhere. Are you going to just let those old unwholesome thoughts roll? If so, then why would the Buddha make such a distinction? The answer can be found in Sutta number 48. There is where he fully defines the hindrances and calls them, in this case, obstructions, and I think it's just a difference in translation. And then the phrase is that the student begins to know that no matter how obstructed the mind is, he can clean it out and see the way things actually are in this present moment. Now that nails a lid on your coffin of it's okay to keep unwholesome thoughts in the mind, because some teacher somewhere didn't say use the word control. This is all about learning to control the mind. If you can't learn to control your mind, then what's the point of anything?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say not to do anything with the thoughts. His approach would be just to be aware of them, and whether the mind will let go or not is beyond me.
As long as you're aware of them and not throw them out, you will stay at that place of dealing with them and aware of them until you finally get so disgusted with them that you throw them out. Why wait so long?
Right.
Why not become completely disgusted with them immediately?
Yeah. I guess, probably he would say that it's the wisdom that after a while wisdom develops and it starts acting before.
But let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's some wisdom now. Let's start seeing dukkha for dukkha's sake, so that we can recognize I've got a job to do here.
Yeah. I think this kind of misguided.
Clean the mind out one thought at a time.
I think this kind of misguided understanding of anatta that I'm sure I have most of the time leaves a lot of space for just habits. So what I think is just the mind itself is just like bad habits, right? So I'm kind of leaving the action to them, right? They will do. If I don't act, they will act for sure, right? And I totally agree that there is a difference. I mean, Buddha says in a lot of suttas that this is path of effort, right? That leads to no effort, and some of these that this is I teach the path of effort that leads to no effort, right? So, and while the Burmese sometimes say
karma that leads to the end of karma, or action that is neither bright nor dark leads to actions that are neither bright nor dark, but it does lead to the end of action.
Mm-hmm.
However, the point about right effort is correct. That the right amount of effort is the least amount of effort necessary to actually get the job done. In this case, is to get the hindrances out of the mind. It's going to take some effort for some people, especially when used to just noting the hindrances without actually understanding this is dukkha. So we really have to get in touch with what is a hindrance, how it applies, what it is, etc., like that, so we can be free from it.
So can we just
effort? It takes an investigation. We have to actually see what's going on.
So how to make
do that and get really good at it, it becomes easier, but in the beginning it's going to take some effort. In fact, there's two kinds of effort that needs to happen for the beginning student. One is the effort of starting to control the breathing and watch the breath, slow it down, getting it deep. And the second effort is about that disassociating yourself from that thought or feeling. And that disassociation, the Buddha used the term, aha, I see you, Myra. And by disassociation of ourself, that's what throws the hindrances out. But in fact, the disassociation thought is a different thought from the actual hindrance that we were in. So we wake up, and now the new thought is disassociating ourselves from that hindrance. Aha, I see you. And so now the next thought is the gladdening of the mind, which is in fact can be the same thought. Aha, I see you, Myra. I got it, I see it. Okay? And so you're gladdening the mind right there. As well as you can have thoughts like, oh, wow, I'm sure glad I caught it. I'm glad I don't have to feel that way anymore. I'm glad I'm not having to think about how hard it is. I'm glad I can see how easy life is when I let it be easy. And so we basically gladden the mind to talk ourselves into feeling really good. We take a deep breath and we feel really good. We let it out as a sigh. Ah, this is so nice. And we come to this present moment.
So I'm trying to think at which point it's going to be hard for me. It is hard for me usually. And probably, so the first thing is like
to understand that people who do have a developed practice throwing their whole motorcycle into reverse, which motorcycles don't have, which means you've got to actually turn the darn thing around.
Yeah.
Well, some Harley Hogs have a reverse, but it's more of a backup gear. But never mind. The point is that you're going to have to make a change, and that's going to take some right attitude to say that I can practice a new way. And that you have to take the effort to start practicing that way so that you can begin to get a thread or so of feeling really good. To allow yourself to have sukha. What is sukha? The actual opposite of dukkha. To go from the first noble truth into the third noble truth in a couple of 3 breaths. Oh, I like this.
So in practical terms, I've been thinking maybe, because now I'm going to like short self-retreat, that maybe I've seen one of your student, Chintan, I think, writing somewhere that you suggested to him doing like interval standing, sitting. Maybe starting with standing would make it more, would kind of counterbalance the strong current of, this avoiding, escaping, hiding, and going into dullness.
Yeah, that's another thing, is because that was the question that I asked you in the beginning, was when does that tension come? Okay? Because your job is to catch it before it does. To throw the kinds of thoughts that bring on that tension out. You talk yourself into being in tension, and your job here is to talk yourself into feeling really good instead.
I think it starts with the allure. So I like the sutta where the Buddha, well, many suttas where the Buddha talks that we need to understand the allure and the disadvantage of the unwholesome thoughts, right? And the allure is like this pleasant.
You've been in the allure for years. Now it's
Yeah.
time to look at the emotion.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Thank you. So I can see. So my question is, I can feel the allure of the dullness. It's
See, I
like
told you could.
it's like a siren song of pleasure and safety. Also, it's like a fake safety. Like you will go, just follow me, you will be safe. Now my question is it possible for me to see the disadvantage, or how I don't remember the word, disadvantage of this in the moment, or should I only think about it? So or is it possible that it's not?
No, you're looking. You're still trying to think your way into it.
Mm-hmm.
What we're suggesting is for you to stop thinking and start enjoying, to come out of the thinking and come into the senses.
Yeah.
To not think about the body, but just to experience the body, to experience it as it's breathing in and out, to experience the wind, or to experience the touch of the cloth on the shirt. And then you can open your eyes and experience what you're seeing. But getting out of you see, there's 6 senses, and one of them is this mental sense, and a lot of people think, oh, that's the valuable one, that's the good one. No, that's the one they're stuck in.
Yeah.
We need to come out of that sense and into the real senses. This is why Anapanasati has all of this body stuff with it.
Sure. I guess the tricky thing is
out of the head and into the body.
The tricky thing is the breath. Even the notion of the breath, it's mostly mental, right? So even when I, the kind of framing, watching the breath, right? Because there's no such thing.
Don't watch it. Be in it. Experience it. Know it. Have great knowledge about it. Be it.
Yeah, be it. Yeah. Probably this is. So yeah, sometimes framing it as sensations or just feeling the body versus feeling the breath is like helps me, because the breath is so.
Talk about it somehow or another, but we're all trying to point to an experience that is very difficult for many people who are caught in their head to come out of their head so that they can experience their senses.
Would you suggest, let's say, to focus, let's say, on the, I don't know, the belly or something like this to be like more far away?
No particular place.
Okay.
In fact, step 3 of Anapanasati in the Anapanasati Sutta is experience the whole body. And in fact, in Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, at that point, he sticks in paraphrase, of the breath, the whole body of the breath. And Tanisaro and he have been fighting over that for 30 years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's and also Ajahn Brahm, I think they also understand it as a body of the breath. Yeah, but it makes sense.
That's
also,
that's what's in the sutta. The whole, no, it's the whole body of the breath is not in the sutta.
Yeah. And the similar of the, the whole, distributing it like a powder.
The body is the body of breath.
Yeah.
But you could say, okay, the body of breath would be like from the nostrils down to the lower abdomen. But in fact, the whole body would also include, and in fact, if you look in certain suttas like the Satipatthana Sutta, number 10, where the Buddha is talking about grasping and reaching and touching and experiencing the hands and the face and all kinds of stuff is in there, as well as we've got walking meditation, and I rest my case. Whole body, not whole body of breath. Sorry.
Sure. I don't have problems with it. My problem is actually that it's super hard for me to feel the whole body because of the, mental pull, right?
A little bit at a time.
Sorry?
You got to start a little bit at a time. You got to start someplace.
Yeah.
Good. You've got to learn to jump off of a porch before you learn to jump off of the side of a cliff.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of time and I've been doing this for years, but yeah, as you say, I guess I have to find a moment where I got these things wrong, right? The U-turn, and this is
You got
tricky.
to find the moment where you actually enjoy experiencing the body.
Yeah, right.
To enjoy experiencing the body right now, rather than hoping that by experiencing the body you're going to get something out of it later to enjoy. No, your experiencing the body is going to be right now, and all the value of the experiencing the body is going to be done right now, including the fact that you are getting some skill development along the way. But other than that, start enjoying what you're doing instead of hoping for something better. By doing this, you get that. That's nothing but just the, you probably heard of the woeful states. The woeful states of hell, Preta, the hungry ghosts, the Asuras, and the animal world. You spend most of your life as an animal doing what you're told to do, hoping that you're going to get some future reward.
Reactive, yes, and avoiding.
We train our children that way in every culture. And so we need for you to stop looking or wanting something out of your meditation, because that's preventing you from actually enjoying the meditation right here now. To be able to throw those hindrances out and say, wow, I'm glad to be free of that junk. Wanting to become enlightened. What dukkha that is.
Yeah. What would you say about, because if I can't enjoy, at least watching what prevents me from enjoying, because sometimes when I do metta, it sometimes is helpful, even if I can't feel the metta, which is like 99% of the time, to see
But that's
what
99%
prevents
of the
me.
people.
Right.
Okay. No one is going to spread joy they don't have.
Right.
It becomes an empty ritual for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Spreading joy they don't have. May all beings be happy, especially me. Is
So
where
what's
they're
the
going with.
so what's
Okay,
the first
we've got
sparkle?
to develop joy first. You've got to develop the sukha first. That's the first thing that you do. That's in fact metta itself, only you're being metta with yourself. You're being friends with yourself. You're becoming friends with the way that you think. Instead of being an enemy with your insides, you become friends with these deep bad feelings. Get to know them so that you can train them. Put them to use.
Okay, so again, so where's the, let's say I'm saying as someone who's super attached to his dukkha, where's the first sparkle? I can't feel joy, I can't feel metta. Is the first sparkle, I see Omara, so just the sheer sati and recognition?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You just keep telling yourself you can. I can't feel it. It's not good enough. Nothing is there. You just smiled. You just smiled. You just demonstrated pleasure. I caught you at it.
Yeah, because I know you're right. I mean,
But I hear that. Yeah, but if you
uh-huh.
can smile and enjoy the moment, you can you can tell yourself a joke.
Oh,
Now,
actually,
it is true that children, when we are little children, age 3, 2, 4, that age, all kids love to play. We investigate. We tear the toys up. We do all kinds of things. We write on the wall. And then mom comes in and throws a hissy fit. We don't remember how much fun we had writing on the wall. We remember her being unhappy in spades. Okay? And
yeah,
so we as humans tend to, because of the survival instinct,
that's a good.
we tend to remember the bad, the dangerous, and we tend to slough off and don't remember all of the good stuff. But
That's
you have had pleasure in your life, and you probably have pleasure every day that you don't even let yourself know that you have.
that's a great metaphor, because there's this actually the counterbalance to the joy is this social expectations thing. It's even not the other people, but the expectations, like me seeing that maybe not my mother, but like something that acts like my mother, like the same dynamics, right? And that I shouldn't
I
actually
know
this
I've
kind of
been talking to her often throughout our talk today. I've been listening to her actually.
yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. So this kind of rebellion in a way, right? That I can do it against these expectations, right? For myself. It's all it's all mixed, right? Together.
The Buddha calls this Sila Bhatta Paramasa. It's the second fetter. Sila Bhatta Paramasa means that we get attached to rites, rules, rituals, ways of doing things, laws, etc. Guess where you got all your rights and rules?
Yeah. That's it's an interesting way to.
Psychologists, they know all about this in the sense of ego states. Freud called it the superego, and Byrne called it the parent ego state. But yes, that's the one that tells us that we're not supposed to feel happy. We haven't eaten our broccoli yet, so we cannot have our dessert. And what I'm telling you is that no, you can go right to the dessert. You do not have to eat broccoli anymore. That you are not an animal being told what to do and you are forced around to do it. You can take control of your own life instead of having this life. Actually, your life is already controlled by the parent inside your head, which is what most people do. And the way that we feel about it is oppressed by that parent ego state. So the child ego state in ourselves is never allowed to be the winner, is generally always remaining the underdog, the victim, the loser. And you can change your attitude. You are not the loser that you were trained to be. You can decide that you're going to be capable of being happy.
You know what's interesting, like almost physical manifestation of what's going in me of this dynamic is that I almost always during meditation my mouth starts to smile, but my eyes, and I came to understand it quite recently.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that. Stay with the smile and forget the head.
Okay.
Stay with the smile and relax outward from the smile. Let the smile be the leader.
Yeah, but it's like eyes are sad and the mouth is smiling, and I have this.
Pay attention to it, other than just you kind of in that sense of noting it. But don't go into all of this tiny, deep inspection of the stuff. Spend your time figuring out how to relax instead, which is really the real point anyway. One of the things you can do is you can roll your head around and you can rub. You can rub the top of your head. You can get a wet rag and you can wash your face. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. But what you do instead is, I know, I've heard all about it.
Yeah, and what also comes up is that feeling of this fakeness, because this is what I think about myself,
you
right?
Gotta tell Mom this is real.
But I mean, this is real.
Okay. It's okay. It is real.
Yeah.
It's good enough. That's the whole point. You've got to get yourself into a state that this is real. It's good enough. It does not have to match any expectations. It's just enjoyable and delightful right now. It's good enough. It's satisfying. It's satisfactory. That's the feeling that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And when you come to the point of this is not satisfying enough, recognize that that too is a hindrance, because we're wanting more satisfaction that we have instead of just allowing and enjoying the satisfaction that we do have. This is good enough. That's the practice.
Yeah, I'm trying to find any problems that my mind will have with it in the future, but maybe I just should.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to do looking for problems. When the problem does come up, throw that out too. And say, never mind, I'm going to enjoy. All right. Let me use this analogy. The analogy is that you're going to learn to play the piano. So you buy a piano, you buy a bunch of piano books, you hire a teacher, you've had your first lesson, and now you spend that whole first week doing anything but practice the piano. For instance, you practice the violin or the guitar, or you play football, but you're not practicing the piano. Is that the right way to learn to practice piano? Is that to learn the way to play the piano? No. No, you've actually got to practice the piano and learning in order to learn how to play the piano. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. So, if the skill that we need to develop is the skill of joy, the skill of satisfaction, then we need to at least get a little of it going so that we can practice getting that much of it.
Yeah.
To learn how to be satisfied with this present moment.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the step that I should be like focusing on. Yeah.
This is where everybody needs to start focusing. To throw the hindrances out and come to a state of, oh, this is really nice. I need to focus on and be able to, in other words, people say that, oh, I'm going to meditate and go really, really, really deep. And the deeper I go, then somewhere down there, there's bliss.
Right. And this is just some kind of perception, right? Of going deeper. It's and like
on some rare occasions, they do find out some way of talking themselves into bliss, but then when they come back out of it, next time they want it, but they don't know how they got it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an actual training in that bliss, that satisfaction.
And this is the view of the like psychotherapy as well, right? That you have to get rid of some bad stuff first. And this is very, I mean, there are some useful things.
That's what you do, but it only takes an instant. All you have to do is recognize it. As soon as you see that thought is unwholesome, out it goes.
That's
and
nice.
I can feel good again right now. This is the practice. You don't have to wait and look and search for the dukkha.
I like it.
Only all you have to do is to wake up and say, there it is, throw it out.
Yeah, just piece by piece, right? And you're like exactly right that usually in this kind of practice, people actually are aware, and let's talk about me. I am aware of the defilements and I'm not really getting rid of them, right? If there's no gladdening, right? And I can be aware, but it's not really, I'm kind of still enjoying them, probably, right? Kind of still clinging.
You're used to them.
Yeah, right.
It's effort to throw them out.
And then again, for me, like the problem is that I start with this kind of violent effort because I don't have any other kind of effort, right?
All you have to do is by recognizing there's not a violent. In fact, the throwing, perhaps, for you, the word throwing out is not the right word because you're used to actually throwing things. So let's find a better word to use. You're actually replacing it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a conveyor belt. The mind is like a conveyor belt. And this moment in this place is just thought, but the conveyor belt moves. What are you going to put in that conveyor belt now? The thought of, I'm glad that old thought's gone. And then the next fine moment comes by. The conveyor belt now is empty. What are you going to put in there? Okay, a deep breath. And then the conveyor belt moves on, and now this is an empty spot. What are we going to do with this moment? We're going to gladden the mind. Oh, wow, I'm so glad to be free from those hindrances.
It always felt magical.
By itself, the one that we were actually caught in now is 4, 5, 6 mind moments down the conveyor belt.
I always, when thinking about the sutta, when the Buddha talks about different ways of dealing with unwholesome thoughts, and he starts with the replacing as the most efficient way, right? Replace unwholesome with wholesome. it always felt for me like
Actually,
something
that's what
magical.
we've been talking about since the last hour and 14 minutes.
Sorry?
That's what we have been talking about for the
Right.
last hour and 15 minutes. Period.
Yeah.
Don't go to the second step. Stay at the first step and develop that as a skill.
Yeah.
Recognize the unwholesome thought and throw it out and replace it with a wholesome thought.
So I guess I always felt like this is some kind of magical. There's something missing. How do I replace? How do I?
Magical. And yet everyone from the West wants to make the teaching of the Buddha magical, and a lot of people in Asia think it's magical also.
Right.
Oh, very practical. But you have to keep doing it over and over again because the mind is let us say, ground into or polished in a certain way.
Yeah. So
And
what?
we change that. We got to change the way it's polished.
So the way my habits think is that what I have is the unwholesome thought, and how do I magically, get rid of it? I have to work with this.
Not magically. You see them.
Right.
You wake up to them. This is
Right.
sati.
Okay.
Sati is wakey. You wake up to see the thought, and you recognize this is unwholesome. You do the investigation to see, is this wholesome thought? Is it not wholesome thought? You woke up. So the question is this a wholesome thought or an unwholesome thought that you just had? Because all the way, by this time, the conveyor belt is moved.
So would you say I should recognize the wholesomeness of the recognition of the sati and enjoy this, right?
Precisely. That is gladdening the mind.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure.
Finally, some insight is coming. Finally.
Well, I I try to recognize this my mind, which tries to find another problem, right? And try to kind of learn this kind of thing as a Mara. Anyway, I have definitely enough to get things going on my mini retreat. So
Okay.
thank you very much.
Next time, let us say it like this. Next time, we can actually talk about the practice itself. Okay. Next time, I hope that you can listen to the teaching about the practice with not too much interruptions. And number 3, I hope that you call really soon.
Okay. I will as soon as I get back. Just to clarify because I've been listening to some of your talks. Sometimes I interrupted when I thought that I kind of maybe that's a mistake on my part. Instead of really deeply listening, I knew it intellectually. Would you recommend to just even if I heard it already to keep listening to try to
call in a couple of days. Practice for a couple of days and then call me.
Sure. Cool. That's the plan.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you.
Okay. See
Have a
you.
great day. Bye-bye.